Brought to you from the University of Texas at Arlington, this is Charlas Entre Amigos, an initiative of the Edge Center funded by the U.S. Department of Education's Title V Part B POHA grant. I'm your host, Alejandro Ruiz, coordinator of special programs for the Edge Center, and I'd like to welcome you back to another episode. Whether you're a seasoned grad student, a fresh face on campus, joining us online, or just curious about the ins and outs of academia, then this podcast is for you. I'll be your host for this journey through graduate life. Welcome back to another episode of Charlas Entre Amigos. I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Amanda Perez, who currently serves as director of the Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life here at UT Arlington. And she was recently named one of Arlington's 2024 40 Under 40 honorees. So Amanda, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. And I'd like to start by giving our listeners a chance to learn a little bit more about you. So can you tell us a little bit about your background, your motivation for pursuing graduate studies, and what brought you to UTA?
Yeah, so I am a Texas native. I was born and raised in North Austin and then found my way out to West Texas to attend school at Angelo State University. I like to consider myself like half a first-generation student because while I'm the oldest cousin, the oldest sibling, my parents, my aunts, my uncles, none of them went to college. My grandparents technically did. However, they were registering for classes, right, like with social security numbers in gym. So a different experience, but
course.
I'm very lucky to have somewhat of their guidance. But anyways, got my undergraduate degree in communication and history. Thought I wanted to work in history, so I started the search of graduate programs. Realized that's not the life I wanted, and so while I was in my undergraduate experience, I got really involved on campus. Like I said, I went to a very small West Texas school, and so the only thing to do was get involved. So I joined my sorority, I got involved in SGA, homecoming, all the things, and I realized I just love college. So I asked my fraternity sorority life advisor at the time, like, how do I do what you do? So she kind of explained that I need to go and get my graduate degree in higher education, some type of educational leadership, and I really didn't know what that meant, but I was very lucky my partner also wanted to do the same thing, so I honestly just followed him, applied randomly to UT San Antonio, got in, thank goodness, and that's kind of how I started my graduate student journey there, and then ultimately I stayed in San Antonio for about a decade, and I did all things involvement, so student orgs, expressive activity, large-scale programming, fraternity sorority life. But what my passion really was fraternity and sorority life. And I knew that that's what I wanted to focus on. And so when an opportunity here came up to be the director of just a fraternity sorority life center at a school that I'm really invested in, I want to work at an MSI, I want to work at a first-generation serving campus. That's kind of what led me here. So I know that was a long-winded answer,
I love
but
that.
Yes, that's my journey.
We were chatting a little bit before we started recording, and I grew up in San Angelo, my family in San Antonio, so I can definitely attest you went to some very, very good places.
Oh, thank you.
Now, as you mentioned, you serve as director of fraternity and sorority life here at UTA, an area which you already have extensive experience in. So as someone who's personally not immersed in Greek life at all, I've never in a fraternity, none of that. I'm curious, what do you see as the biggest benefit to involvement in Greek life for students interested in pursuing graduate studies?
You know, I think the biggest space is while you can join as a graduate student, either alumni associations or graduate chapters, your involvement in undergraduate can really lead you up for success in your graduate program. So I kind of mentioned I followed my current husband to UTSA to do our graduate program there. But the very first thing I did was connect with my alumni association. And from there, they helped us find where we wanted to live. There was a lot of UT San Antonio graduates. So it was, I didn't even know how to buy a parking pass. And so they were like, well, you need to go to this person and see this person. So really that undergraduate involvement can lead to that graduate student success when you just lean in on those resources and those sisters or brothers. And then I was also very lucky. I applied to quite a few foundation scholarships and was able to get some of my tuition paid for through my sorority.
Oh, nice.
So while it's not a direct impact where it was joining at the graduate level, that experience and that involvement that I had during my undergraduate, I think helped alleviate a lot of first generation graduate program barriers that had I not had my sorority, I think it would have just been a little bit harder.
Yeah, for sure, not having that support system,
yeah.
right? A follow-up to that, now that you're director of fraternity and sorority life here, what do you see as your biggest responsibility to those students looking at going into graduate school?
I think reminding them of those networks and immediately trying to connect them to those spaces. So almost every major city has an alumni association. And sometimes I think as undergraduates, we're only thinking of this experience for 4 years. We're not remembering this is a lifelong commitment. So I think my initial kind of responsibility is that gentle reminder of let me already go ahead and get you connected. However, I think indirectly what we could be doing a little bit better here is working with our current graduate students who may already be affiliated and reminding them that, again, it's not 4 years, it's for life, and now your new home is UTA. So wherever you came from beforehand, like, let us remake this home for you, especially with our new community center opening. We could do some really cool stuff over there.
I saw that. I missed the ribbon cutting. I was so upset, but I'm going to have to come and visit you all.
Yes.
And I'm glad you were mentioning that because it leads right into our next question. And are there currently any Greek initiatives or programs that UTA graduate students should know about or that y'all are working on for them?
Yeah, I think some initiatives or programs is the reminder that there are still involvement opportunities. So we have a handful of cultural-based fraternities and sororities who take graduate students, and then our interfraternity council, some of their chapters will take graduate students. But honestly, before I came onto this podcast, like, thank you for sending me some of these questions beforehand. I thought I could be doing something more, and it really was reflecting on what my experience was and the wish that I had to have some type of network or community or sense of belonging. And so I think with this new community center opening, there are some doors that can be open to do a little bit more intentional graduate level programming.
For sure. I'm curious because I've heard of a couple like graduate or alumni associations in the area. Have you all done any kind of opportunities to connect students with those organizations, or is that not in the works yet?
Oh no, so we do a lot of work with alumni associations here. They are very, very involved in a way that I've never seen before. There's this love and this attachment to UT Arlington that is really powerful and exciting. So we've started just curating those relationships initially. We've had a handful of trainings and programs in our center this current semester, but I definitely think there's still room to grow to connect to the unaffiliated student.
For sure. Yeah. Well, if you ever think of any opportunities, in any way that Edge Center can support you in helping bring those opportunities for our graduate students to fruition, please don't hesitate. We're here to help, okay?
Yes, I love that.
Now, I want to switch gears a little bit. And first off, congratulations on your recent nomination to your 40 Under 40.
Thank you.
I want you to tell us a little bit more about that recognition. And just in general, I'm not very familiar with it, but obviously it's a distinction. So what does that mean to you as a professional and as a community leader here in Arlington?
Yeah, so I believe this is the third iteration of Arlington's 40 Under 40. It's ran through the Chamber of Commerce. I share that to say it seems to be very new in the Arlington community, but really it's just designed to identify impactful community leaders, whether they're business owners, higher education, K through 12. They're doing some really cool work in the community. I will be honest, I was so surprised that my name was even within a 5-foot meter of a bucket to be thrown into. But I really put that back on the work that I've been able to do with our alumni here. We have some really amazing Fraternity Sorority Life alumni that are doing cool stuff out in Arlington, and they have given me such a warm welcome here and have allowed me to grow and learn from them. So I think that's where it may have come from, is I've been able to get a lot more ingrained in the Arlington community, even though I've only been here a year and a half. Professionally, I think I shared, I was so surprised. I'm still just how did this happen? But I think it just doubles down on the sense of value that I feel here at UTA, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work on the personal level. I have 2 kids. One is in AISD. The other one should be starting this fall. And so I'm looking at ways, how can I get more involved in the community as a mom and as maybe a leader in those different spaces.
For sure. I've heard a lot of very good things about Arlington recently. There's a lot of involvement that I keep hearing that Arlington's on the come up.
Oh, yeah.
And I keep seeing that with initiatives like this. I don't know if you're connected with the Hispanic Women's Network of Texas either. They have a new chapter here in Arlington that's very active as well. So there's so many opportunities for that, to get involved and to give back. So I'm glad that you were recognized for the work that you're doing. Considering the work that you do in helping students understand not just the importance of leadership, right, but philanthropy, service to their community, how does an honor like this influence the work that you do and your vision for the future of fraternity and sorority life here at UTA? Yeah,
I think it just shows that the work that not only I'm doing, but that my students have bought into our vision is really enhancing what's happening at UT Arlington. Fraternity sorority life can be one of the best decisions somebody makes, because if you look at the student here, right, they're working 30 or 40 hours a week. Many of them are caretakers. They're also enrolled full-time. That being able to join one organization that can give you access to academic support, service opportunities, leadership, is really unique if you don't have the time to join 3, 4, or 5 different organizations. And whenever they buy into this vision of growth, and growth not just in numbers but in impact to their peers or to the larger Arlington community, just shows that what they do matters. And I think them being able to see this recognition that I was able to receive has just doubled down that the work that they do is valued and is important, and that if we all do this together, we can continue to make bigger and bigger impacts.
For sure. And it's helpful for them to learn those lessons early on, right? Before they even set foot into the real world, helping them recognize they do have power and they do have an opportunity to make a difference, no matter how small.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Before we move on, I'm curious, in the year and a half that you've been here, what's maybe the most memorable thing that you've been a part of in your role as director?
My favorite event that I've seen since I've been here, it's called the Great Pumpkin Carnival. So apparently this is an event that's been going on for about a decade, and it's a partnership with the Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life, and then really early childhood education, where we have our fraternities and our sororities. They host inflatables or various activities for little kids. It could be coloring, it could be cornhole, and we had last year about 300 families come and join us. And to see students from the local Arlington area, which we know are a lot of Title I schools that may have never set foot on a college campus, or they could be first generation future class of 2032 students.
Oh gosh.
Come in, and just seeing the way that our students, their faces light up engaging with these, young kids. And my kids are able to go to this. They're 3 and 6. And to know that we're able to have a direct impact on a community in a safe Halloween program, bringing kids onto campus, bringing their families to campus, and showing them the positive side of fraternity sorority life, that is my absolute favorite event. I've been able to see it twice, and this year I'm just looking forward to it growing even larger.
Yeah, I love that. You reminded me of an event that we used to do when I worked in residence life. I was at Our Lady of the Lake in San Antonio, and our fraternity and sorority life and student orgs actually put on a Boo Bash every October, and I loved it because we partnered with them, and our students in the dorms loved decorating their hallways and their doors, and we would actually guide groups of families through, and they would get to trick or treat with the students in the buildings, and they'd come out, and fraternity, sorority life, and student activities had a whole carnival set up for them. So they got to trick or treat and pie phase, dunk tanks, all of that stuff, and they loved it.
I love that. Those are some more ideas that I need. Yeah. So we're still a little bit small, but I love that. It's going to get bigger and bigger as we continue. And
there's a lot of great work happening at UTA. I think there's definitely a lot of gaps to fill, right? But I think those just present opportunities for us to, partner and pull our resources and make it a better experience, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Now, I know many students can, especially graduate students, could probably relate to your story. And for them listening and who may look up to you, what advice would you give them about navigating the journey that is graduate school?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think one thing that I consistently have to remind myself is that I'm supposed to be here, and I earned the right to be in a graduate program. I think so many times, especially if you're a first generation, whether first generation undergraduate or first generation graduate, you really go in with the idea of, I'm not supposed to be here. How did I trick the system to let me into pursuing an advanced degree? And that can, I think, as we all know, create a lot of imposter syndrome and take away from your desire to want to take on additional resources or opportunities. So I think the very big thing is you are supposed to be here, you deserve to be here, you did the work in your undergraduate program to be here. But then I think the second space is to take advantage of all the resources and opportunities that are there. You are paying those same fees. You have access to the same things you did in undergraduate. I think for me, my first semester there, I didn't have an assistantship. I only knew, one person, my partner at the time, outside of my alumni association. And so I really didn't know what I was doing. It wasn't until I got my first graduate assistantship in the graduate school where I was like, oh my gosh, they're doing cool stuff for graduate students. We need more people to know about this. Now, granted, that was kind of like an early Twitter days, so access information in a digital space wasn't there. But I think sometimes graduate students, we feel on the back burner, feel a little bit left out because it's so designed for the undergraduate experience. So that reminder of you're supposed to be here and there are resources out there for you. Identify that one person who can be your champion, which hopefully here it's like an Edge Center or your graduate school. And then just take advantage of every opportunity. Most of these are only 2-year programs until you get into maybe your PhD work, but you have 2 years here, enjoy it and do the best that you can. Yeah.
Great advice. And I love that you shared that, it's important to find that space where you feel connected, right? I think that's what we've been stressing in all these episodes is, no matter what you find and where you get plugged into, get plugged in somewhere, because you shouldn't go through this journey alone. It's definitely not meant to be, traversed by yourself. So I'm glad that you reiterated that. I want to follow up with asking, how important would you say it is to get involved on campus at the graduate level?
I think if you have the ability to do that, and I say ability with the idea of, many of our graduate students could be full-time family caretakers, or they work full-time. Maybe graduate life isn't their sole responsibility, but still finding the way to get involved, whether it's on your graduate student council or showing up to tutoring sessions, or if you're able to be in a cohort, creating that community within your cohort. Involvement can look very different at the graduate level, but I think going back to what you just shared, having that community and sense of belonging is so important, not only for your graduate experience, but I wasn't in a cohort model, so it was nice. I got to meet a ton of students over my 2 years there, some that were starting the program with me and some that were leaving, my first semester. But I still rely on so many of them whenever I don't know what I'm doing right now. I'll call friends who are in higher education or in student affairs and say, what do you think about this? So it's not just during this time, but it's postgraduate experience level when we're out there kind of hopefully failing forward. We have friends to call and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. Do you have any ideas? So it's really important to get involved in whatever that means to you. It may not look the same as your undergraduate experience, but involvement and community are very important.
I think that's what scares maybe a lot of graduate students, right? Is they think it's going to maybe feel exactly the same, or that they're going to have to show up to all these club meetings and events. And no, I think we've been stressing that a lot to students as well, that it's about getting plugged in where, one, you feel welcome, but two, where you feel that it balances with what you got going on, and where you feel like you're actually, getting something in return.
Exactly.
I think something people don't focus a lot in graduate school is investing in yourself, right? There's a lot of focus on, succeeding in classes and building your network and, finding that job, but sometimes the self kind of takes the back burner, right? Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. I want to end this episode a little differently than we usually do. And rather than ask you, what advice you give to any current or prospective graduate students, I'm curious to know a little something else. Your list of accomplishments is quite extensive, in my opinion. So I want to know, what's next for you, both personally and professionally? Is Greek life the end goal, or is there something else simmering on the back burner?
Yes, no, such a great question. The question I ask myself, what am I doing with the rest of my life? I did just start here a little under 2 years ago, so I do want to stay in this space for some time to see some initiatives and projects move forward. But I would love to continue my journey here at UTA, whether that be at an AVP level, or if it still is in the same space, what does a PhD program look like? Yeah. But that could change too in 2 months, right? I have no idea sometimes. But for now, I absolutely love my job. I want to be here for quite some time in the role of Director of Fraternity Sorority Life. There's some really cool things that are happening that I just know that I want to see to the end.
For sure. And you just got a new space.
Exactly.
That brings all this new energy.
Yes.
So I know there's going to be a lot of people rallying around you to help bring all these things to fruition. I'm so excited to see it come together.
Thank you.
Of course. Well, thank you again, Amanda, for joining us and for sharing your advice and insights with our listeners. And we wish you nothing but the best as you continue to model your leadership here for our Mavericks.
Oh, thank you so much. I had so much fun today.
We had so much fun hosting you, so we'll welcome you back anytime. And to our listeners, thank you again for tuning into this episode of Charlas Entre Amigos. We are so thankful for your continued support and listenership. We'll return on Friday, April 25th to chat with Dr. Augusto Cesar Hunt Serracin, former Edge Scholar, recent UTA PhD graduate, and current postdoctoral fellow at the University of Texas at Dallas. Remember, whether you're a current grad student or just curious about graduate life, we're here to support you every step of the way. Until next time, mi gente.